Hi, my name is Maddie. I am a Skills alumni as well as a fashion student, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a fabric keychain. This is what it looks like. You have a front as well as a back, and I'm going to show you how to cut and measure as well as sew the fabric keychain, and I'm going to show you how to use transfer paper and a heat press to apply a Skills logo onto your keychain. First, I'm going to go over the supplies and materials that you have in your toolboxes. We have a just old t-shirt for protection for using the heat press, as well as scissors, twill or ribbon, ruler, interfacing, the fabric pieces or fabric scraps to make the keychain, as well as your needles and your threads, logos, and a marker, a seam ripper, as well as some key rings. I also have the heat press and the circle template, the hand sewer, and the transfer paper. We're going to go over safety. So the safety measures that you will need your safety glasses and your safety gloves. I'm going to wear my safety glasses for the whole demonstration, and our safety gloves we will be using for the heat press. The first step that you need to do in this project is to cut and trace your fabric. So you have your circle template, and you can choose whichever size of circle you want to use. I am going to use this circle just to trace my fabric, and so I'm just going to pull my fabric and line up my circle. And I'm going to line up the edges of the circle to the edges of my fabric. And I recommend doing that just so that you're not wasting as much fabric. And I'm going to take my marker and just trace the circle, making sure that my marker is kind of angled. And I'm just going to trace the circle, and I'm going to do that with my other fabric piece as well as my interfacing. And I'm going to go ahead with my scissors and cut out my interfacing piece and my fabric pieces. Now we're moving on to step 2. Step 2 is to iron on your interfacing. So the white material that I told you about earlier, it has a bumpy side and a non-bumpy side, and the bumpy side is the glue. So we're going to be ironing that onto the front circle. So whatever pattern you want the front of your circle to be, you're going to want to iron it on to that. Quick reminder, if you didn't plug in your heat press, you should do so now. We have it warming up over here. And yes, so you're gonna wanna take your nice t-shirts to protect the surface, and you're going to want to take your little fabric piece and whichever side you want to be front facing. So I want this to be looking out to you when I show you, like, here's my keychain. This is the good side of your fabric, and if you flip it over, that is the bad side of your fabric. So the bad side of your fabric is what you're going to want to iron on your interfacing, because you don't want your interfacing to be on the outside of your keychain. So I'm taking my interfacing and I'm going to go bumpy side down. When you rub your finger over it, you will feel the bumps. And I'm just going to place it on. So before I iron on my interfacing or touch the heat press, I'm going to put on my safety gloves to protect my hands from the heat. And now you can go ahead and take your iron and iron on your interfacing. So I'm just going to pick it up and place it on the interfacing. And I'm going to hold it down for 10 to 15 seconds just to make sure that the glue has melted to the fabric. And it's important that you make sure that you get the edges. So if you have to, just go a little, just hold it down over the edges for a little bit of extra time. Just a note, you don't want to hold your iron down onto your fabric for too long because it could melt your interfacing or even your fabric. So you want to make sure that you're not holding it down for longer than 10 to 15 seconds. The next step for your project is to sew the front side and the back side of your keychain together. But first, we're going to want to thread our needles. So you have your thread, and you're just gonna want to take a little strip and cut it off. And then you're going to want to take your needle. This is just a regular sewing needle, and thread it through the eye of the needle is what it's called. It's just a little hole, and you're just gonna wanna thread it through. And you're going to want to match the bottoms together. So you have your two little pieces of thread sticking out, and then you're just going to want to make a knot. So I'm just looping it around my finger and then pulling it through. And you're going to want to do that twice, and this just knots our fabric or our thread, and it just makes it so that your needle doesn't go all the way, or your thread doesn't go all the way through your fabric. And now you're ready to sew your two pieces together. So you're going to want to take the back of your fabric. You have a good side and a not good side of that one as well. The good side of your non-patterned fabric is going to be darker, whereas the bad side is lighter. So you're going to want to put them bad sides together. So the light side of the non-patterned fabric is going to go on top of your interfacing, and then you have like a little sandwich of your fabric, and so the good side and the back side. And then you're going to want to measure an inch. So we're going to need a gap in our keychain so that we can put the twill around the keychain and then put the twill in the keychain, and that will allow for our key ring. So I'm just going to take my ruler and measure an inch. I'm just measuring that on one of the edges, and then I'm just going to make sure that I really mark where that is, because you don't want to sew in that inch gap, because you need to make sure that you can put your twill in. And now you're ready to start sewing your sides together. So taking my needle and thread, I'm going to first put the needle in between both of the pattern pieces, and I'm just going to come up on where the front of my keychain is, and I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm just going to move over a little bit, stick it in right beside it, and then pull through, and you'll notice that you can see the thread. And then you're just going to continue it around your circle, but making sure that you don't catch that 1 inch gap. So from behind, I'm just sticking it through to the front, pulling up, doing the same thing. I'm moving over a little bit, putting the needle through and pulling it through to the back. You can also choose to do a blanket stitch to sew around your circle, and this stitch is a little bit more decorative. It looks like this, and it just goes around the same as the running stitch. It would go around the circumference of the circle, and it's used to add little, like on stuffies or on corners. It just adds a little bit more detail. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to measure. You're going to want to use your circle template to draw a guideline for you. So the circle that I'm choosing to use is smaller than my fabric circle. So I used this one to trace out my fabric, and I'm going to use this one for my guideline, just because I need a little guideline that is not the edge of my circle. So I'm going to use my marker to draw a circle, and you're also going to want to make sure that you leave an inch gap as well. So I'm just using my ruler again to measure that, and I don't want to sew within that inch gap. So the same thing with the running stitch, I put it in between the two fabric pieces and push it through the front, and then I'm going to pull up, and I'm going to go around to the right of the circle, so just putting it through, and I'm going to go down from that point, and I'm going to make another point and push it through. And I'm not going to pull it all the way through. I'm going to go back up to my guideline and push the needle through to my guideline. And I'm going to make sure that as my needle comes up, it's going through the previous thread, and I'm just pulling it closed. To complete the blanket stitch, you're going to just repeat that set of movements around the circumference of your circle, making sure that you're not sewing in that 1 inch gap. Step 4 is to iron on your logo. You can choose whichever logo you want to iron on. This is what it looks like. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is peel off your logo from the transfer paper. So you're just going to want to get an edge and peel it off, so like that. And then you're going to put your logo face up on your keychain, bring it over to your table protector, and place the protection over top. And since we're using the heat press, we're going to want to put on our gloves to make sure that we are protecting our hands. And now you're going to just iron on the logo. So you're just going to press it down. Again, 10 to 15 seconds. Want to make sure that it is a safe heat for the fabric that you are using. And just make sure that you're pressing the edges down as well. And then you have your logo secured onto your keychain, and this is what it should look like. Step 5 is to attach our key ring. So if we refer back to my little example, I have the ribbon attached to the key ring. Today we will be using twill. And how you're going to do this is you're going to pick whichever twill you want to use. I will use this one, and you're going to need 2 inches of the twill. So using my ruler, I'm just going to measure out 2 inches, and I'm going to cut. So you wrapped your twill around your keychain, and it looks like that. And then you just want to insert it into the little 1 inch gap. It's up to you how much twill you want to show or not. You're just going to insert it like that. And then the best way to close it up is to use a running stitch like I demonstrated in the beginning. As a little recap, you're going to want to take your needle and thread, And you're just going to do the same thing that you did before. You're just going to put it in between the two fabric pieces and pull it through, making sure that you hold the twill in place. And then just beside that, you're going to insert it again, pull it through, and you're just going to want to do that all the way around. And then to end the running stitch, you're going to do it from the back. So you're just going to insert it in really close to your last stitch, and you're going to want to poke it through that stitch, bring it up, and go through. And you're going to want to do that twice to make a little knot. And then you've successfully closed your pocket, and you have your finished keychain that looks like this. Thank you for following along with this demonstration. I hope that you enjoy Skills Exploration Days.